Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this back. I wanted to come on tonight and just review the ASWB exam candidate handbook. So this is the handbook for all ASWB exams for the bachelor's level, master's level, and clinical level. So this video will be a little long, so I just want to prepare you for that. And I really want you to take the time to listen to this. So if you're driving, it probably would be the best time for you to listen to this because it's going to be a little lengthy. Or, if you have some free time. But this is very important information, and this is the handbook that all of us should look at before we test for the exam, because this is what's recommended to us. So if you're like me, I haven't taken an exam since my master's level exam in 2015. So it's good to have a refresher about what to expect. So that's what this video will be about. So this video is for anybody taking their license exam for the first time, or if you've taken one before and you just need a reminder of all the things that are available to you through the ASWB. So I'm not going to read everything word for word here, because of course we all can read ourselves, and this is also accessible to you from the ASWB website, but I just want to point out a few things here. So we'll start here. You have the table of contents, and it's an introduction about the exams, steps for taking the exam, and they go through step 1, 2, and 3 and break down everything you need to do. So that's really what we're going to talk about mostly. And then also test day and then after the exam. So here they have a little introduction and congratulate us for our efforts to become licensed, whether we're already licensed or if we're getting a first license or whatever. They're congratulating us. And it says that ASWB supports social work boards by providing licensing exams. The social work board in your state regulates the practice of social work. So they determine your eligibility, they issue your license, and they handle license renewal, which this year for a lot of us is our renewal year. So your CEUs are due this year for a lot of people, particularly those of us in South Carolina. That's what I know is absolutely fact. So we have until December 31st to pay our renewal fee. And then also they started something new with the CEU tracker. We have until March to upload our CEUs. So it says ASWB develops the licensing exams. They register candidates to take the exam, and they issued score transfers. So then they go into talking about the exams and the format. Of course, most of us know that it's 170 multiple choice questions. 20 of those questions are being used for pre-testing. So the possibility of those being included in future tests. So only 150 of the questions on the test count, and then the other 20 don't count. They're just testing those out on us. And you don't know which 20 they are. They randomly stick those in there. Let's see. And then, of course, you have 4 hours to complete the exam, which is administered on a Pearson VUE computer. So then here they have an non-interactive, tutorial. So you click on that. And again, this is accessible to you on the ASWB website. And they I was looking at this before I made the video to see what I wanted to talk about, but they kind of give you a walkthrough of the tutorial that you take once you get into the exam room on the exam day. So you'll see this on your computer when you're about to take your exam. So they show you, how to scroll and navigate on the computer. They show you how to respond on if you want to end your exam. They ask you to certify that you are the person taking the exam and that you're authorized. And then they show you that you're going to take a tutorial of how to use the Pearson VUE testing system. Then you're going to take the examination, which is the 170 questions over the 4 hours. And then you'll be given a series of survey questions. And then after that, dun, 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 is whether or not you pass the exam. So they show you how to use these buttons here. The timer is there, the help button, review, mark, next, previous, and all of those. So they tell you how to use the next button to navigate. And then also you have the next button, the previous button to navigate to the prior question or previous question. If you need a reminder of how to use the buttons during the examination, you have a help button up there for that. They also show you that you can use the mouse to select answers. You can also select answers using your keyboard. So A, B, C, or D. And then you have to click on next or previous to navigate to the next or previous question. Then there's also the timer. So the countdown clock is located on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And if you are one of the people who have utilized the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series, then you know I talk about the timer and how it's important to hide the timer if it's going to cause you anxiety. You need to hide the timer, but don't forget that you hit it because you need to keep track. So everything is strategy down to the timing of this exam. So you need to pace yourself. You need to know what you're going to do, how many questions you're going to answer, and then check how much time you have left. And, you need to map all of that out, see when you think is an appropriate time for you to take a break and all of that. So it's important that you know that there's a timer. You will also receive a warning message 15 minutes before your test time expires. So you don't want to get so deep into the exam and then that little timer pops up and tells you have 15 minutes and then you start panicking because you have 30 questions left. So you really need to be strategic about pacing yourself for this exam. Then you can also mark questions or flag questions for review. And it says, please note, if after marking a question for review, you move directly to the review screen, the question will not yet have an X in the marked column. In order for this to happen, you must navigate to the next question by clicking the next button and moving to the next screen. So make sure you note that. Using the review feature. So this is going to show you those questions that you marked and it's going to help you review all of that. So make sure you read through this. Then ending your exam. It's going to ask you if you wish to review your questions, you can click on review. If you're finished with the test and you don't want to review anything, click on continue at the bottom of the screen. And then also, and I'll talk about this in the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series as well. Make sure if you flag anything, you don't want to flag a lot, first of all. Secondly, if you flag anything, you really don't want to go and start changing a lot of stuff and second guessing yourself. You need to be a lot confident in your answers. But it's okay to change something if you absolutely now know that something is wrong that you flagged, but don't go changing a whole bunch of stuff. They'll ask you if you would like to review the tutorial again or go to the test. I guess that would be at the beginning of the test. And then they will tell you that you're about to begin. You have 170 questions, 4 hours, and your time will start when you click OK. So all of this is spelled out for you. Next, previous, mark, time, help, zoom, feature, all of that. This is the warning sign that you'll get when your test is about to end in the 15 minutes. Another warning, are you sure you want to end your examination? If you want to review, go back, then you click review, or you can click continue to end and go to the survey. So a lot of people think that once they end the exam, they get anxious because they're like, okay, it's about to pop up and tell me if I passed or if I failed. But no, First, you have to take a survey, which gives you even more anxiety because you're like, oh, I've been sitting here for 4 hours or however many hours. Now they want me to answer these questions. But yeah, so you have to do that. And then it tells you that you've completed your examination. So you click OK, and then it pops up and tells you whether or not you passed or failed. And we're going to claim, of course, that we all pass. Okay, so back to this. It tells you how the exam was developed. There's an examination committee. I posted a link a couple weeks ago where they are looking for test writers. So some of us are eligible to become test writers. So they are looking for some test writers at the beginning of next year. So go back on the feed and find that is posted in the Facebook group. Then we have the exam categories: associates, bachelor's, master's, advanced, generalist, and clinical. I think most of us here are probably studying for our master's, but then some of us, and a lot more of us like me, are studying for our clinical now. So it just tells you the requirements and the purposes. Then it says some boards require additional examinations as part of the licensure process. So check with the social work board in your state or province to find out whether the ASWB examination is the only exam you need to take. So I'm going to click on this real quick so you can kind of see what that is. So they will, they have a list of different licensing boards and things like that for all of the different states. Of course, I'm in South Carolina, so I'm going to click on that. And generate a report for that. And here it just shows the licensing board website, South Carolina state statutes or laws, and then the rules of the South Carolina state government. This is something that I had not seen before, but I looked at it before I started this video, and it just has about, in South Carolina, our continuing education requirements, principles of professional ethics, and that's it. It's just like 2 pages, really. Then statutes, and I think you all should definitely check this out for your state, because it tells you this is the South Carolina Code of Laws, and it tells about how social workers should conduct ourselves in the state of South Carolina. It tells us about definitions, what is an advanced practice social worker or an advanced practice supervisor, an approved clinical supervisor. What is the board? What is case management? Who is a client? What does counseling mean in this state? All of that good stuff. Let's see. Powers and duties of the board. So this is all of that good policy and law stuff that you need to know in the event that some wrongdoing has occurred and all that. Or, other things have occurred. Then here's the licensing board in South Carolina, which is where we go and register for our exams and turn in all of our information. So they have an alert here for COVID-19, but also here you can see this is where we will renew our license, which I need to do, pay my little fee and all that before the 31st. Apply for licenses, look up licenses of different social workers in the state, apply for military spouse licensure, that kind of thing. So this is all you need to know in the state of South Carolina about like reciprocity, continuing education, all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to go back out of all of this. Steps for taking the exam. Step 1, of course, is to apply for a license with the board in your state. So I'm not going to click on all this stuff because this video will be super long, but directory of social work boards, obtain and obtain and submit an application for license, pay your license application fee, and receive approval to register. So this is where I previously was in these steps. So after I finished my 100 hours of supervision, 3,000 hours of client contact for my independent license, I had to turn in my learning contracts. My supervisor turned that in. My clinical supervisor for licensing turned that in. Turned in my hours. Turned in all of the stuff that I needed. I turned in my paperwork also, and paid my application fee, which I think was like $45 or something like that. I can't remember. And then I waited for an approval to register for the exam. So that's step one. Step two, I had to register for the exam. So that's for ASWB exam candidates. It says order exam guide and online practice test. That I'm not doing. I'm not ordering the exam guide. I posted, I think it was yesterday, on the page about the exam guide. And that is, I think, $15 for the ebook or $20 for the tangible book. And there's also a sample. And I downloaded that sample, and it's not worth downloading. It's like 4 pages that just talks about a whole bunch of nothing. But I don't need the online practice test either. Well, I may get it at some point once I get closer to my exam date, but I'm definitely not ordering the exam guide. But yeah, so once you register for the exam, pay for the exam that I'm taking is $260. It's the independent license exam, clinical exam. The master's level exam is $230. So, and then you can schedule your exam date. So I think that you have a year after you've been approved, after you register for the exam and you've been approved, you have a year to schedule your exam and take it before your approval expires. And I guess you have to pay and get approved again and register again. So then also non-standard testing arrangements. So this is requests for people who may have a disability or other health condition, or if English isn't your first language, you need some accommodations for language, or if you need to request a 90-day waiver or an excused absence. This is where you would go, non-standard testing arrangements. So these accommodations are also talked about in the videos on the Day-to-Day Social Work YouTube channel, as well as in the tutoring series. This is where you would go. They give an example of documented disabilities are protected under federal and or state law and generally apply to a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. A lot of times I've seen people get accommodations for anxiety that's been diagnosed by a physician or a clinician. Other conditions would be diabetes that require a monitoring device. So people who have type 1 diabetes, who have to check their blood sugar, would be an example of that. Or temporary or short-term conditions such as a broken bone requiring an ambulatory arrangement, pregnancy requiring additional breaks, or breastfeeding requiring access to a breast pump are some examples. Then also individuals who might need arrangements for American Sign Language would also use this form to request non-standard testing arrangements. The standard examination administration is that all candidates who don't have or need accommodations will get 4 hours to complete the exam of 170 multiple choice questions answered directly on a keyboard and computer using a mouse, and may take short breaks during the 4-hour testing time. The testing time does not stop during breaks. So if you have any questions, you can email specialarrangements@aswb.org. And then here they have a little thing where you can download a request form for accommodations, which I have a video on that as well on the Day-to-Day Social Work YouTube channel. And there's a link also on that video in the description box. This looks like it was updated in August of 2020, so probably want to use this link from the direct page. English as a second language is also, like I said, there for you. And then I've also known people to get accommodations for actually taking the exam on paper. Their exam will not be scored immediately, of course. It takes a couple weeks for your score to come back and let you know if you passed. I've had people get additional time. I've had people get binders to put on the computer. So there are some accommodations if you need them. And also, as I always say, don't be ashamed if you get accommodations. It doesn't make the test any easier, and it just accommodates whatever your condition is at that time that will or could hinder you from being successful. You know, if you're breastfeeding and your breast milk is leaking, you know, you need to be able to go and handle that and not allow that to affect your taking the exam. So you may need some extra time. So the exam is still the same. It's not an easier exam or anything like that. Then step 3, it says schedule your testing appointment with Pearson VUE, and you'll create a password and username to get on there and schedule your exam. And I'll just click on that real quick. So I have a sign in and all of that, but I'm not going to sign in because all of my stuff is saved on my computer, so I don't have to remember what the password is, and this is not on my computer. So, but scheduling your testing appointment, you must have your authorization to test email to schedule your testing appointment. You receive confirmation of your appointment, and then you can cancel or reschedule an appointment and get directions to the testing center. So you have 24 hours to change your test, 24 hours from your test date, prior to your test date, to change it if you need to reschedule it. So this is basically all of that being broken down, making sure you're eligible by turning in all of your paperwork. If you need accommodations, all of that we just looked at. Requests for non-standard testing arrangements must be submitted and approved before the candidate registers and pays for the exam with the ASWB. So you have to request any non-standard testing arrangements that we just talked about. You have to request and submit that and be approved before you register and pay for the exam. A $30 change fee is charged if the candidate registers before receiving approval for non-standard testing arrangements. Non-standard testing arrangements cannot be added to a testing appointment after the appointment has been scheduled. So make sure you know that. And then again, like I said, taking the clinical exam, so I had to pay $260. If you're taking the associate's, master's, or bachelor's exam, it's $230. They accept MasterCard, Visa, Discover, credit cards. All fees are non-refundable. Changes made to an exam registration is $30. Once your registration is complete, you will receive an authorization to test email within 2 business days. The email will contain information about where you need to schedule your testing appointment. Keep your authorization to test for future reference. Make sure you keep up with this stuff. And again, it says here, like I just said, your authorization to test is good for one examination only and may be valid for up to 1 year. If your authorization to test contains a board-imposed expiration date, you may not take the examination after the expiration date. So then they have exam prep, of course. The ASWB wants you to purchase their items. They have a practice test. It's $85. You must be registered to take that test. It's a one-time test. It's a replica of the actual exam. If you're going to pay for any practice test, I recommend you get the one from the ASWB because it's the one that's most close to coming directly from the proctor, of course. It's most likely to give you the most accurate gauge of how you may perform on the actual exam. So if you're going to pay for anything as far as practice tests, it's an investment to pay for the one from the ASWB. You don't want to take that exam. Sorry about that pop-up. But yeah, so you may want to take your exam, your practice test, sorry. You may want to take your practice test close to your exam date. So if you are practicing, you're studying, you're learning, and you are getting tutored or whatever, you want to do all of that and learn how to take the exam. Use the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series first. Learn how to take the exam. Learn how to use new strategies and how to take the test the way the test writer wants you to take it and think how they want you to think. Learn. And then, because it's a one-time test, take the online practice test from the ASWB because you want to see how likely you are, how prepared you are for the exam. So you don't want to buy it now if you just now started studying and take it, because that's going to be a waste. Okay. And then, of course, like I said before, the ASWB has the KSAs on their website, exam content outlines. You can access those on their website. Here's a sample question. It's for the clinical exam. It's in the Human Development, Diversity, and Behavior and Environment. The KSA is the effects of addiction and substance abuse on individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. So it says a 6-year-old child lives with a foster family. His father is in prison and his mother is in residential treatment for alcohol dependence. The child is small for his age, often has temper outbursts, and has difficulty completing schoolwork. The social worker notes that his speech is immature. What should the social worker do first? This is a first question. So we know that we have a 6-year-old child that is our client, and he lives with a foster parent, a foster family. The father is in prison. The mother is in a residential treatment for alcohol dependence. So dad's in prison, mom's in treatment for alcohol dependence, 6-year-old child in foster care. The child is small for his age, often has temper outbursts, and has difficulty completing schoolwork. So they're listing out some signs or symptoms of this child who has a father in prison and a mother in residential alcohol treatment for alcohol dependence. And the child is 6 years old with the foster family. So what should the social worker do first? Is it A, work with the foster parents on a behavior modification plan? B, suggest that the child's teacher refer him for special education placement. C, refer the child for assessment of fetal alcohol syndrome. D, work with the child's biological mother toward reunification. So again, this is a clinical exam, and the KSA deals with addiction of substance, the effects of addiction and substance abuse on individuals, families, groups, and organizations and communities. So of course, they're not going to tell you that that's the KSA on the exam, but just by looking at the question here, we should know that. So they're saying that the child is sick, so the child is young, and the mom is in residential treatment for alcohol dependence. Dad's in prison, and then all of these things this child is going through is small for his age, temper outbursts, difficulty completing schoolwork, and his speech is immature. So what are we going to do first? Are we going to work with the foster parents on a behavior modification plan? No, we are the social worker. We may at some point work with the foster parents on a behavior modification plan. So we're going to just put here, I was trying not to show the answer, but no. So we're going to put a little mark on here that A could potentially be an answer, but is not first. B, suggest that the child's teacher refer him for special education placement. That's a throwaway answer. The teacher is not mentioned in here. They do mention that he has difficulty completing schoolwork, but we're not going to suggest that the child's teacher refer him for special education treatment or placement, because that's putting the cart before the horse. That's a throwaway answer. C, refer the child for assessment of fetal alcohol syndrome, which is actually the answer. And then D, work with the child's biological mother toward reunification. So we may do that at some point, but not first, because the mom is in treatment, a residential facility for treatment for alcohol dependence. So D is also a throwaway answer. We're not going to first work with the child's biological mother toward reunification because she's in treatment herself. So B and D would be out. We'd throw those out, and we would be between A and C. Either we're going to work with the foster parents on the behavior modification plan, or we're going to refer the child for assessment for fetal alcohol syndrome. Now, we could work with the foster parents on a behavior modification plan, but because we're on a clinical level, on a clinical exam, we first want to refer the child for assessment for fetal alcohol syndrome, because these are some of the things that are signs or symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome. The child is small for his age, often has temper outbursts, difficulty completing schoolwork, speech is immature, and the mom is in residential treatment for alcohol dependence. So these are things that are already given to us. So again, if you've done the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series, you know how I operate. We know that we need to put things in chronological order. So what we first work with the foster parents on a behavior modification plan, and then refer the child for fetal alcohol syndrome assessment, or are we first going to refer the child for assessment for fetal alcohol syndrome and then work with foster parents for a behavior modification plan? Of course, first we want to refer and make sure that we find out if there's something medical going on or genetic, and the answer is C. So there's a little example of what you would get, very short example of what you would get when using the 75-day pre-recorded tutoring series. It's a breakdown of everything. So then we have step 3, schedule your testing appointment with Pearson VUE. So again, they give you that website where you can go on to Pearson & VUE's portal, sign in, and look at the available exam dates, schedule your exam. You're going to get a confirmation email. If you do not receive your confirmation email, it is your responsibility to contact Pearson VUE immediately and request that it be sent again. So if after you've paid and you've registered and all of that, and you don't get a response email within, I'll say, about 2 or 3 days, you need to contact them. Also, if you need to cancel or reschedule your testing appointment, it is your responsibility to follow these cancellation rescheduling guidelines to avoid forfeiting your examination fee. And they talk about some things here. If you may cancel or reschedule your appointment by contacting Pearson VUE at least 24 hours before the appointment time online, which I just said. You can do that there at that website I just showed you, or you can do it by phone at 877-884-9537. If your testing appointment was made with non-standard testing arrangements, please see your authorization to test email regarding canceling and rescheduling your appointment. Test day, examination security. So, we know that the ASWB social work licensing examinations are high stakes exams that can affect the person's ability to practice social work. So violating exam security is a serious offense, and ASWB strictly enforces security measures at its examination sites, including taking personal items. It says many of the rules and procedures that follow, including identification requirements and the prohibition against taking personal items in and out of the testing room, exist to protect the content and administration of the social work licensing exam. By enforcing these security procedures, oh goodness, it's coming through here now. I don't need any more pop-ups. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? ASWB can provide secure testing environment and reliable examination programs. So, test center arrival, you need to arrive on time, and on time means early. And early means about 30 minutes early than what your exam date or time is, because you want to give yourself some wiggle room for things that may pop up. Let's see. Yeah, check in and become familiar with your surroundings. It's a good idea to locate your test center a few days before your testing appointment to minimize unwelcome surprising on test day. So yeah, if you're taking it on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, go on a Saturday morning before your exam at 8 o'clock and just ride through there and see what the traffic's like, see if there's any parades or marathons being ran and all that kind of stuff. Check the scenery out. No shows, late arrivals, and late cancellations. If you don't appear at the scheduled time and have not canceled or rescheduled the appointment, you will be considered a no-show and forfeit your examination fee. We don't want that to happen. Excused absences. It is possible to have your absence or late arrival excused by ASWB if circumstances beyond your control make it impossible for you to keep your testing appointment. These could be illness of either you or immediate family members, death in the immediate family, or disabling traffic accident. So you need to immediately email specialarrangements@aswb.org if that is the case when you go and take your exam. Any excused absence must be made in writing and accompanied by supporting documentation and submitted to ASWB within 30 days of missed testing appointment. And I would say sooner, the sooner the better. If approved, you may register at the reduced fee of $150 up to 1 year after receiving approval for the excused absence. Inclement weather, natural disasters. So your test center may be closed in the event of inclement weather, natural disasters. You want to call Pearson VUE to find out if you think that that may be the case. When you go in there to take your exam, you must present 2 IDs. They have a list here, one from the primary list and one from the secondary list. You will not be allowed to test and will forfeit your examination fee without proper identification. So driver's license, passport, military ID, permanent resident visa, green card, social security card, work ID, student ID, all of that. I'm going to let y'all read through these because, Also, important. Your photo will be taken and your palm of your hand will be scanned anytime you leave out the room to go for a break and when you come back. They want to make sure you don't have a twin somewhere coming to give you knowledge, meeting you in the bathroom and then switching out and that kind of thing. You'll also have a locker to put things in, your wallet, your keys, that kind of thing. You will be required to electronically sign the candidate rules agreement, which looks like this, 2 pages. Again, not going to read this because this video is already hitting 40 minutes. Earplugs are available by request. I definitely use earplugs because any little sound would distract me. They talk about the tutorial. They talk about the breaks that you can have. Your testing time doesn't stop just because you take a break. You may leave the testing room during breaks only to use the closest restroom. Palm be scanned each time that you come back in. Take your photo ID with you when you go on a break so they can check and make sure it's you when you get back. Be courteous of other test takers. Difficulties and remedies. Although rare software problems and power outages can occur, if the problem occurs for more than 30 minutes, you have the choice to stay until it's corrected or You can report your concerns to the ASWB within 2 days of the occurrence and check out what they can do about it. Then they have some tips for test day. Get a good night's sleep, arrive early, know where the test center is, wear comfortable clothes, dress in layers, leave your personal items, including watches, at home. Be prepared to stay at the test center. Pay attention to the on-screen tutorial. After the exam, you'll do the exit survey, and then your exam will be scored, and you're going to know right then and there if you passed or you failed. You will have a printout that will show you your statistics, your analytics of the exam. Keep your unofficial score report for your records. Do not discuss exam questions with others, including in study groups, in person, via email, posting on internet forums, or social media. So you cannot tell people what's on the exam. You cannot say this question word for word was on the exam. Now you can give people a general idea and say, hey, I had a lot of community questions, or man, I had a lot of medication questions and I wasn't expecting that. You can be general, but you can't get on there and start telling people what's on the exam. If you fail the exam, you have 90 days before you can take it again. We're going to claim that we're all going to pass. But in the realistic chance that we don't pass on the first try, we have 90 days to take it again. And yes, you have to pay for it again. So that's that. So hopefully this is helpful to you all. Again, you have access to this exam candidate handbook on the ASWB website. So leave your comments below. Please like, subscribe, share the video. Leave comments below if you have any questions, comments, and happy studying.